Look, for a small business, a single network breach, it can be absolutely devastating. We're talking serious financial loss, crippling downtime, and a reputation that's just shattered. But here's the thing. What if I told you that building a really strong defense doesn't have to cost a fortune? Today, we're going to break down an essential 5-minute action plan for your network security. All right, let's just dive right in and bust a huge mess. Do you think hackers only go after the big guys, the giant corporations? You know, the whole "my business is too small to be a target" idea? Well, think again. Because the reality? It's the complete opposite. In fact, small and medium-sized businesses are seen as prime targets. And you want to know why? It's simple. Hackers know you're busy, you probably have limited resources, and maybe your security isn't Fort Knox. That makes you an easier and, honestly, a more profitable target for them. And the thing is, your attack surface, all the ways a hacker could get in, it's way wider than you probably think. I mean, just think about it for a second. You've got employees using their own laptops, right? That's what we in the biz call shadow IT. Then you've got those forgotten accounts from employees who left ages ago that were never deactivated. Add in some of those risky third-party app integrations and unsecured remote connections, and boom, suddenly you're walking through a digital minefield. Okay, I know that sounds a little scary, but don't worry. There's a clear path to locking all this down. We've broken it into 3 main parts. So let's start with part 1, building your digital fortress. So these 3 tools, they work together as your first line of defense. Think of a firewall as your network's bouncer or gatekeeper, checking everyone's ID at the door and blocking anything suspicious. Then you've got antivirus, which is like having a dedicated security guard for every single computer and phone, constantly on the lookout for bad behavior. And network segmentation? That's brilliant. It's like putting blast doors between different departments. So if your guest Wi-Fi gets compromised, the breach can't spread over to your critical financial data. And of course, with so many of us working remotely, securing that access is absolutely critical. Now, a traditional VPN, well, that's kind of like giving an employee a master key to the entire office. Once they're in, they can pretty much roam wherever they want. But the modern approach, zero trust, is totally different. It's like having a security guard at every single door inside the building, asking for ID every single time you try to enter a new room. It verifies who you are and what you're allowed to access, over and over again. The default position? Trust no one. But here's the deal. All the best technology in the world is only half the battle. Your team, your people, they can either be your biggest vulnerability or your strongest asset. So for part 2, let's talk about how to make them your best line of defense. It all starts with one super powerful idea: the principle of least privilege. Sounds fancy, but it's really simple. It just means that people should only have access to the exact files and systems they need to do their job, and nothing more. That's it. This one change dramatically cuts down the risk of someone accidentally stumbling into the wrong data or a compromised account causing way more damage than it should. So how do you actually do this? Well, you can start with role-based templates. Create a standard setup for a salesperson, another for marketing, another for finance. And hey, even your IT admins should have 2 separate accounts, a regular one for their day-to-day tasks and a special admin account they only use for those high-level functions. Then, and this is key, make it a habit to review everyone's permissions every quarter. Trust me, you'll be shocked at how much permission creep you find in cleanup. Okay, and now for the one thing that is absolutely 100% non-negotiable. I'm talking about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Look, passwords get stolen. It happens all the time. But with MFA turned on, even if a hacker gets your password, they're stuck. They can't get in without that second piece of the puzzle, that little code from your phone or security key. It is single-handedly one of the most effective security measures you can and should implement. Seriously. You also have to build a culture of security, and that really starts with training. Run some phishing simulations every quarter so your team gets good at spotting the fakes. And you know what? Let's ditch those crazy complex passwords that everyone just writes down on a sticky note anyway. Instead, encourage long but memorable passphrases. Something like Sunflower Basket Bridge 92 is way stronger and easier to remember. And finally, when an employee actually spots a phishing email and reports it, make a big deal out of it. Celebrate them. That positive reinforcement is just so important. All right, so you've built your digital fortress, you've trained up your team, but let's be realistic. What happens if something still gets through? That brings us to part 3, creating a data safety net so you can bounce back and bounce back fast. Now, when we talk about backing up your data, there's a golden rule. It's an industry standard, it's simple, and it's incredibly effective. It's called the 3-2-1 rule. Let's walk through it. First up, the 3. This means you need to have at least 3 copies of your data. That's the original, live version, plus 2 separate backups. Next is the 2. You're going to store those copies on 2 different types of media. So, for example, you might keep one backup on a physical external hard drive and another one safe and sound in the cloud. And finally, the 1. This one is so important. You have to keep at least one of those backup copies completely off-site. Why? Because this protects you from a physical disaster at your office, a fire, a flood, even theft. If your building is gone, your data isn't. Okay, to round out that safety net, make sure you're using the encryption tools that are already built into your computers. I'm talking about BitLocker for Windows and FileVault for macOS. Turn them on. It makes stolen data totally unreadable. You also need to be monitoring your network for weird stuff, like someone logging in at 3 a.m. And maybe most importantly of all, have an incident response plan. This is your step-by-step playbook for what to do the second you think there's a breach. Seriously, don't wait for a crisis to figure out who to call and what to do. Now, look, if you're listening to all this and feeling a little overwhelmed, that is completely normal. For most business owners, the real challenge isn't knowing what to do, it's finding the time and the expertise to actually get it all done right. And that brings us perfectly to our final section. Partnering with a managed IT service provider can be an absolute game changer. Think about it. You get professionals watching your network 24/7. You get automated software patching so you're never vulnerable because of a missed update. You get help with all those tricky compliance rules like HIPAA or PCI. And the best part? It's usually a predictable fixed monthly cost. And it gives you access to the kind of enterprise-level security tools that would normally be way out of budget. And plans like these are usually designed to scale right along with your business. So a small shop that's mostly in the cloud might just need a basic plan to cover email security and backups. But as you grow, you might move up to a professional plan that adds in crucial stuff like device monitoring and patching. And for businesses with more complex environments, the enterprise plan gives you that full 24/7 managed detection and response. It's all about finding the right fit. So, if you take away just one thing from all this, let it be this. Security isn't some product you can just buy off a shelf. It's not a set it and forget it kind of deal. It's a living, breathing process. It's about constantly assessing your risks, defending your network, and being ready to respond, because you can bet the threats are always evolving. And that brings us to the final, most important question. Don't try to do everything at once. That's a recipe for burnout. Just look back at everything we've talked about and ask yourself, what is the one thing I can do today to make my business more secure? Are you going to go turn on MFA for all your accounts? Maybe you'll block out an hour to start drafting that incident response plan. Or maybe you'll schedule that first phishing simulation for your team. It doesn't matter what it is, just taking that first step, that's what matters most.